meeting of the Conservation Commission for August 15th open. And I will call for a motion to approve the minutes from our August 1st meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Approved, so moved. 61 Ash Street. Are we here? All right. While you're setting up, I will read it into the record. Under the Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40 of Mass General Law is amended, and the West Bridgewater Wetland Protection Bylaw Rules and Regulations, the West Bridgewater Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing the 15th of August 2017 in the McDonald Brown Conference Room, 65 North Main Street, for a notice of intent filed by Collin Engineering on behalf of Raymond Hessen to upgrade an existing septic system for a single-family residential home within the vicinity of a BVW, 61 Ash Street, and we're open.
All right, good evening. My name's Dave Clark from Collins Civil Engineering Group. We're here tonight for a septic repair under a notice of intent for 61 Ash Street. You can see that it's the normal color coding. It's the yellow. The yellow is in the property line. The green is to the south side of the property is a wetland delineation line by Brooks Monroe. The orange is the 50 and the pink is the 100-foot buffer. The existing septic system is on the south side of the property behind the house. You can see it's in light gray. There's a tank leading into a pit. This will all have to be abandoned. The water tables are pretty high out here, and the 4 feet of material that we need to establish a septic system is very rare. The reason why we put the septic system in the rear of the property, down by the corner, so close to the wetlands, is that's the only place on the property we could find 4 feet of contiguous material that the Board of Health would accept that actually perks. Everywhere else there was maybe 1.5 feet or a foot, so we had to move south on the property. This is going to be a raised system due to the water table. The system's going to be about 4 feet in the air. It's going to be above, it's going to be actually above the top of foundation of the house. And we're proposing a interlocking brick retaining wall. The system's going to be surrounded by an impermeable barrier on all 4 sides at the remove and replace. The limit of work is going to be surrounded by a silt fence. It's going to start up here on the north side of the property at the chain link fence. It's going to come down the property line, and then it's going to come over to the corner of the garage, effectively closing in everything from the wetland line to the system. There is a chain link fence that surrounds the property, and the system is going in a grassed area outside the chain link fence. It's already previously disturbed grass area. It is going to be a pump system, of course, because it's so high. And it has been approved by the Board of Health. So that's where we're
John?
Did you ever consider, in the fact that you had to request a waiver from 50 feet to 22 feet to the wetland, of putting in an advanced treatment?
I'm sure that George looked at it.
Is this for sale?
This is for, I don't know if the property is for sale or not.
Okay.
I didn't see it for sale sign up.
So is it leaking?
Hmm?
Is it leaking?
Yeah.
Oh,
It has failed, so.
Yeah, it has failed.
oh, okay.
Is there a different way? Is this got a leaching field and everything?
This
Tight tank?
this has the existing system.
Yeah.
Is it
No,
pa-
the one that you're gonna be putting in.
Oh, the one we're putting in is going to be a leaching system. Now, we're putting in, usually we go with 1,500 gallon tanks. We're going with 2,000 gallon tanks. It is a 6-bedroom house. We were able to work with the Board of Health to decrease the size of the system by 50% almost, to put as least impact as possible on the site.
But isn't there like a septic system with just tight tanks themselves?
Tight tank is only used as a last resort,
But
and
it's in
the
the
state
wetland.
does not. The state does not allow it mostly. So
But anyway, John, is that
Good.
what you were
Yeah,
referring to?
yeah, the tight tank is, as Dave says, is not really condoned by the, I mean, it it is an available alternative, but they really frown upon it because it requires so much pumping, and it's not very hard to fill up a 2,000-gallon septic tank in a couple of weeks with a
Six-family.
six-bedroom, is it?
Yeah.
Six-bedroom home.
Six-bedroom.
Six-bedroom home.
It'd be real quick. So what I was referring to is that generally, if you're in a sensitive area,
Yeah.
whether it's a water or an aquifer protection type
Right.
district or near wetlands,
Right.
you propose a FAST system or something like FAST, which is a secondary to the septic tank, which is a primary treatment. The FAST is a more advanced treatment, and the quality of the effluent coming out of there is a lot cleaner. And so that's why I asked if they considered it, and you have required that in the recent past on one that was really close to the wetlands.
Considering the proximity to the wetlands, I would be in favor of that. Does it add the size of the, anything to the size of the leaching?
No,
field?
it's just another tank that they put in the ground. It has some type of modules
Gotcha.
inside
Runs
that
through.
do some more filtering and treatment.
Yeah.
Especially considering how high up they have to go to
Exactly.
get the separation. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
What kind of system is it now? Is it
It's your normal pump system with a 2,000-gallon tank, in a pump tank.
how old is it?
Oh, the system as it exists now is a pit.
Oh, it is a
Yeah,
pit.
it's a pit.
Yeah, so it's probably in the water table. It is
Mhm.
polluting.
Mm.
The closest pit that's there is 50 feet away, though, so at least you had that distance.
The pit's located right here, approximately.
I mean, all things considered, you need a new system. That's the only place it can go.
It's the only place we can find 4 feet of contiguous permeable material. or
Right,
suitable
but I
material.
would personally would add that proviso that we add another tank to improve the quality of the effluent.
I think that's what I was kind of getting around to.
I can say that I can look at that scenario and have George report back to this commission. He's the designer.
Yep.
if you could,
I believe he already has, but I will bring it up
Okay.
in front of him again.
Yeah, that would be important to me, I'm sure.
yeah. Yeah. Anybody else, anything up here?
Mm-mm.
Comments from anybody in the audience? Questions? All right. I'll entertain a motion to continue till the 5th.
Motion to continue?
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So
Aye.
moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have LEC, the recycling facility. When you're doing that, I'll read it into the record. Under the Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40 of Mass General Law as amended, and the West Bridgewater Wetland Protection Bylaw Rules and Regulations, the Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing the 15th of August, 2017, in the McDonald Brown Concert Room, 65 North Main Street, for a notice of intent filed by LEC Environmental Consultants on behalf of EOMS Recycling to construct a new recycling plant in Brockton with the stormwater basins within the buffer zone of an isolated vegetated wetland in West Bridgewater, map 12, lot 9. And we are open. They have green cards, and we're good to go.
Is it all right if I stand over here?
Sure.
Okay. Good evening. My name's Claire Hogeboom. I'm here with LEC Environmental Consultants. With me is Scott Rogers of JK Holmgren, and I believe Lou's somewhere. Lou Tarantino, the applicant, is here as well. So as previously mentioned, this is a notice of intent application for construction of a new recycling facility on a site located both in Brockton and West Bridgewater. It's a site comprised of 4 lots, 3 of which are in Brockton and 1 is in West Bridgewater. It looks like it's this hatched parcel here. The proposed project is located within a 25-foot riverfront area to a perennial stream. It's located within bordering land subject to flooding, and it is located in the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering land or bordering vegetated wetland. As far as the whole project goes, for the portion of the proposed project within West Bridgewater, it is solely located within the 100-foot municipal buffer zone to an isolated vegetated wetland. So first I'm just going to go into a quick summary of the existing site conditions, and then I'll go over a bit of the site history as well, and then lastly I'll pass it on to Scott to describe the proposed project. So as far as the site goes, it is accessed by Oak Hill Way. It's located south of the terminus of the paved portion of Oak Hill Way. As it enters the site, it becomes a dirt roadway, which continues on to an open sort of gravel sand area that has been previously excavated. So it currently just leaves a lot of exposed soils as of now. It's surrounded by forested upland and wetlands to the west, north, south, and east, virtually everywhere. The MBTA commuter rail is located along the eastern property boundary. The gravel portion of Oak Hill Way crosses over a perennial stream, Edson Brook. There's a 25-foot riverfront area associated with that. There are bordering vegetated wetlands throughout the western and eastern portions of the site associated with that perennial stream, and they're also associated with some wetland replication that I'll go into with the site history as well.
Excuse me, Claire?
Yes.
Just so that you mention, when you're referring to northeast, so forth,
Of course.
can you show where the north arrow is on that sheet?
I'm not sure I see it,
Yeah, that's about
but
right.
it's about, like, my finger's pointing north on this
Yeah.
site.
Oh, so it's not on the sheet, but,
No, it's not, but
Okay.
technically, this is sort of the site here, going north-south. So this is Oak Hill Way here,
Yeah.
heading down into the site. These are all the proposed conditions, so none of this stuff really is there existing currently. So we have the bordering vegetated wetlands extending along the eastern portion of the site, and then also along the western portion of the site. So the western portion of the site now would be on the bottom here. So here's the southern portion of the site. We have an isolated vegetated wetland just beyond the plans here. And we have an isolated vegetated wetland in the southeastern portion of the site. It looks like one flag extends onto West Bridgewater, which is where our municipal buffer extends onto the West Bridgewater parcel. I believe that covers all the wetland resource areas, with the exception of bordering land subject to flooding associated with the stream to the north in Brockton. As far as the site history goes, in 2007, the Brockton Conservation Commission issued an enforcement order for unpermitted work being done on the property. Subsequently, the applicant applied for a notice of intent application for that work. Had a lot of replication work associated with that. That resulted in a substantial amount of wetland replication areas in the western, along the western bordering vegetated wetlands. Along the eastern wetlands, there were wetland replication areas. There was buffer zone replication done. There was compensatory flood storage as well for all of the work that was done. And they also replaced 2 existing undersized pipes that the perennial stream was flowing through with an open bottom box culvert. All of that work was completed around 2011, and LEC conducted the monitoring until 2015, which is when Brockton issued their certificate of compliance. So at this point, as far as we understand, there are no outstanding issues with the site for enforcement orders or any outstanding permits associated with that. With that, I pass things on to Scott.
For the record, my name is Scott Rogers, Holmgren Engineering. I just want to run you through different phases of the project and what we're doing, the whole totality of it. It's important to note that for phase one, we'll be basically extending the roadway from the paved portion of Oak Hill Way with utilities to basically beyond the 100-foot buffer zone in Brockton here. There'll be obviously utilities, underground, gas, sewer, drainage. That roadway itself will be paved, like I said, beyond the 100-foot buffer zone. Beyond that, there'll be an area here that'll be recycled asphalt. In addition to what we're doing for that, we'll be adding in drainage and a pond basically here, only as it relates to the tributary area of that specific watershed. So essentially, phase one will kind of come in this particular area right here. They'll be using containers or storing containers there. It's important to note that the containers are totally empty and there's nothing in them. There's basically container storage areas. I want to kind of describe to you the future build out of the property. And the reason why I've been showing this in conceptual form is specifically in the West Bridgewater portion. There's a basin over here, which we'll talk about, but it's important to see what we're proposing as the full build out so you understand why things are placed the way they are. Eventually, probably under phase two or phase three, there'll be a larger recycling building located here, as well as a 20,000 square foot office building located in this portion here, as well as a 20,000 square foot maintenance building. There will be paved access roads that basically get you throughout the site in and around 2 out of 3 of the buildings. Additionally, parking areas for the office building located here, some parking for the recycling facility or the recycling building, and a few spaces for the maintenance building. The rest of the areas that you can see here, here, and here, and down here will be used for, again, container storage areas. And of course, we'll have new drainage areas that will correspond with those specific build-out areas, being 3 other infiltration basins, one located down here, one that's located over here, and the last one will be located in West Bridgewater. So flipping to that specific basin that's located in West Bridgewater. That basin is located inside the 50-foot buffer zone for West Bridgewater. You can see the outline of the basin is shown in green. Essentially, the tributary area for that will consist of catch basins and manholes that will flow into a stormwater quality tank. There'll be an overflow system as well, and so there's essentially 2 flared-end sections that come out of that drainage system, riprap at the bottom. And then there'll be a 10-foot wide gravel road that surrounds that infiltration basin. So essentially from the buffer zone, you'll be coming up, rising up 3-to-1 slope to about 4 to 6 feet. There'll be a gravel road that surrounds that, and you come down to the infiltration basin itself.
Is that over there gonna be for the big building in the
big-
driveway, or?
The big building mostly goes into this basin over here.
So what's,
The watershed for this is essentially this corner back here.
okay.
As I mentioned, there's the big basin over here, there's one down over here, and there's the one that will be built under phase one.
Roof drains on the buildings?
Roof drains in the building, right now, we're proposing to put those into infiltration systems, but again, the building sizes aren't necessarily
Yep,
nailed down. But we do have the buildings proposed for underground infiltration systems at this point.
Is the big building right here gonna be just like a freestanding, like, open front?
We're kind of anticipating that it's going to be, not really sure of the architecture of the building, but essentially there'll be, bays along in here at some point, and there'll be a certain part of the inside will be for the recycling itself. There'll be an area for trucks to, drop off the containers and all that. So again, it's important to note that all this stuff is really phase 2 or 3, and it's all conceptual, we have no architectural plans to show you. Really, all we're doing is building out phase 1, and then that's, future phases. That's pretty much it for my presentation, but I'd love to answer any questions you may have, or for Claire.
So the proposed maintenance building, again, that's all conceptual, so as far as drainage and anything in there for repair, maintenance, storage and stuff?
Yeah,
Isn't-
we're actually gonna be meeting with the City of Brockton Conservation Commission on Thursday of this week. And Rob May, the city planner, has asked us to come in and talk to the planning department, planning board, about the concept at least, so that they can at least get a look at it. But everything is conceptual, and I can answer questions about that stuff, but it's so preliminary at this point that it would be a broad brush approach.
Do you, I know it's conceptual, so do you foresee this retention basin changing any drastic forms if they start looking at something different on the Brockton side before we dig in and say, yes, this is it, and you've got to stay with it and then have to come back and?
I mean, things could change, if the building gets smaller, things could scale down. Right now, those basins are pretty good size, and actually, Nova Armstrong, we're working with them on the drainage part of it, and they're making comments right now about groundwater mounding, so we're going through the process of analyzing that. There may be some changes to the basins a little bit, but,
John, do you have anything?
I don't know where to start. I guess I'll start with, did I not hear, and I was paying attention to something else, of what you're planning to do for ground cover in the watershed that's contributing to the retention basin?
for this one.
Yeah.
So essentially, under the full build-out, we're anticipating that there's up to the buildings here, there'll be some paved access roads. A lot of the areas, we're anticipating that we're gonna have recycled asphalt for the container storage areas, so it won't be an entirely paved area. And then for the basin itself, we're gonna use topsoil and hydroseed to stabilize those areas.
So when you say container storage, they'll be empty?
Part of the recycling process will be, there'll be some empty ones, there'll be some that are full, and those will be brought to the building, and all the materials will be recycled and sorted out, and then, stored off, or brought off-site.
So is there any containment plans to, like a berm around the, say it was all asphalt pavement, and you normally put in a berm around the edge to contain the water so that any of the contaminated water from just whatever's in the containers that leaches out from rainfall gets directed to the catch basin where it can get some treatment, and you are proposing a water quality structure of some sort, and whether that can handle the load that might come out of something that's leaching out of those, I'm not sure, but are you proposing anything like that to contain it?
Again, this area is so beginning that we're just touching base on it, but essentially what we would be having is at least a Cape Cod berm that would surround the perimeter of the caved areas and the recycled asphalt.
All right.
So
And does
it would
that
be-
show on the plan?
Yeah, there's a double line that shows all
Okay.
the perimeter of it.
Okay, the next question is this an owner use or is it a lease use?
They own the property and they'll be developing it themselves, so there's no.
So on the notice of intent, it's listed as someone else owning it.
It's a different entity for tax purposes, and it's essentially the same group of people. They can speak to that if I'm incorrect about that.
So the property owner is Jonathan Siegel, Brockton Power Properties Incorporated.
What you're gonna find is that's what's listed out on the Brockton Assessor's maps.
Okay.
And in the assessor's office, that's what's listed.
Yep.
But they bought the property up to this, like, that's correct.
Okay, I don't see where you indicate a test pit in that basin.
We've done several test pits throughout the areas. There are a couple that are located not exactly in the basin, but in the vicinity of this area down here. We had originally, under older scenarios, had some kind of stormwater basin like is over here.
Do they show anywhere on these plans?
They should show on the grading drainage plans. And the test pits themselves are on the detail sheet.
Okay.
If we don't have those, that may have been a later revision, but I can get you those.
One of my comments to the commission is that I recommend that test pits be done inside the basin and that it be witnessed by me. In my report to the commission, I did talk about the fact there wasn't a delineation fee submitted, and Claire pointed out that there's possibly one flag over the town line into West Bridgewater. So I'd have to wait and see about that one, because if there aren't any other wetlands, then it doesn't seem like there's a need for it, but we would need to see that. How, I've done a quick calculation, how much land disturbance is that area that you're proposing there?
This one?
Yeah.
It's about 200 by 100, give or take.
All right, the town of West Bridgewater has a land disturbance bylaw. It's called the stormwater bylaw.
Mhm.
And anything over 5,000 square feet will require a filing under the stormwater permit. We might be able to accommodate you for that in some way, either through a continuation of this hearing or a separate hearing altogether. The thing that troubles me is that we don't have a target to shoot at. We have a conceptual plan. It could be changing, so if the commission were to issue an order of conditions, and even with our first condition that we put into the special condition, that any changes would require them coming back to us, I'm not certain that being primarily in Brockton, that we'd even know that a change is coming, whereas in West Bridgewater, the building inspector, the planning board, all of the boards work together to keep everyone informed of the fact that something's changing on a project. And I'm not sure we have that, so I don't know how, if everything was perfect here, we could close it tonight and issue an order of conditions on a nebulous type of document.
Yeah.
So I have to think about it while somebody else might have some questions here.
Is this the plan you're gonna bring to Brockton?
Yes.
So for what we see right here, I mean, you said things could change, size, buildings.
I mean, they could. This is what we intend on building today.
So we'll
but
see the difference if you have to make those changes.
If we get into the further design and things evolve and the building gets to be, smaller and we get to shrink things down, or if it gets bigger, or if parking spaces change, we'll have to go back to Brockton anyway. We can come back to you as well if we need to.
And we'll see, yeah, we'll be able to see the difference. Right?
As long as we know about it.
Well, if they come back with the same, if we keep a plan for ourselves, and you come back with the different, changes on different plans.
And I think based on the history of the site, I think the intent is to be upfront with both towns and cities to let you know what we're doing.
How many acres is this whole piece of property gonna be affected?
The piece in Brockton is about 28 acres, and the piece in West Bridgewater is about 8 or so. It's about 37 acres total, give or take.
We have to continue anyway because of the test pit observation you want to do, right, John?
Would that be something that can happen at the time of construction, the test pits?
No.
I'm just skeptical, not knowing what Brockton's gonna do. They decide they don't like
Well,
this
that's what I mean.
plan,
It's
and they
no
decide to
problem to
change.
come back when you've got a more definitive plan. I mean, is it urgent that we do anything tonight besides kind of go over it?
I don't see the harm of coming back to you guys
Yeah.
in 2 weeks or 3 weeks where the next
Right,
hearing
right,
is.
we've seen the basic,
Brockton will have had a chance to at least
Yeah.
open their hearing.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I don't see a harm in coming back to see you guys. That makes everyone feel better.
Yeah, you're gonna have to come back anyways.
Yeah.
I'd
exactly.
feel more comfortable if they had already looked at it and said that conceptually they don't see any changes on the
It's kind of good that you
basins, because
came
if they
to us,
change
I
the
think,
size of
first.
these, it may affect the size of this.
Well,
And-
I think it's kind of good that you came in front of us first.
Yeah, I'm not sure Brockton would agree with you, but
True.
most of the work's being done in Brockton.
Mhm. Continue.
Well,
I'll let
um,
You need some time anyway.
if we can verify the ownership of the property and that it does tie that owner, who is supposedly this applicant, to the order of conditions, we would be able to put that first condition that we always put in about the changes, and that's the best that I think we could do. I've been trying to think of another way that it would assure the commission that any changes that were made to the plans would definitely come back to the commission, but I don't think there's any guarantee. So in order for them to get a certificate of compliance, if they had come to the commission with this plan or something similar, and let's say by next hearing, and you vote on it as the record plan, and then 3 years from now, 4 years from now, if they came in for a certificate to clear the environmental lien off of the land title, and the plan was drastically different, you could just deny issuing the certificate, and I guess that would make sure that, that things get done in the proper process. You may have to reopen a hearing at that point to amend the order of conditions and then turn around and then issue a certificate. So I think there's a way that it can be done. So hearing all of that, and maybe there's butters that want to talk about it, or other people here in the room that might want to talk about it, I'll reserve my recommendation until we finish talking.
Anybody else have questions? Anybody in the
Um,
audience?
Yeah.
Yes.
Elmer Selectman. I've known Louis for many years. He runs a successful business. He's been looking in the area, trying to keep away, from the residential, and being where Brockton has its recycle, not too far from there. It seems to be an area that could accommodate something like this. And I know it's going to take some work. I talked to John a little bit about it. We discussed it just a little. And he said, well, he's going to, look into it and come up with something there. But knowing Louis and the way he operates the business is where to go. And I certainly know he's been waiting to expand for quite a while. And he's looked at different locations, but this seems to be a lot more feasible to what he's looking for. And, getting away from residentials and that type of thing. So I just ask you to give it consideration, and we certainly, the Board of Selectmen works along with the businesses that come into town, and we welcome new businesses all the time here. But I know a portion is up in the Brockton there, and there's a lot of questions that have to be answered here, and we certainly will look forward to it and try to get through this process. Thank you.
Anybody else, anything?
I just had one quick question. There's no detail. What is in here? Is this all uplands in here?
It's
This
upland, yeah, this part of the
down
site is
through
all
here?
upland.
So we have no concerns about
It's wooded.
buffer zones in here? Okay, great.
Well, based on that, I would recommend continuance so that we could get out and do test pits.
Yeah.
Right.
There is a little
I was just noticing on the
bottom left.
bottom left, there's potential vernal pool located in West Bridgewater. Has that been,
Oh, that might be cut out of here. Yeah, that was an isolated, the southwestern isolated vegetated wetland. That's
Yeah.
mapped on the natural heritage map as a PVP. We were out there delineating, I want to say early summer, late spring, and there was a good amount of water there. We didn't do any vernal pool studies, so.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to continue to the 5th.
Continue to the 5th.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
Some serious plans there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good night, gentlemen.
Oh,
All right. Next, I have 401 Pleasant Street,
better known as.
403 Pleasant Street. That's a continued public hearing.
Good evening again. For the record, my name is Scott Rogers from Homewood Engineering. We were before you on this project on July 18th, and there were some comments and suggestions we made that were made to us, and we addressed those. I'd like to go through those with you at this time. This is the older plan here. I'm going to show you the newer revised plan. There were essentially 4 comments that were made to us. One was a filing fee correction. We've addressed that, and we've got a new check to the Conservation Commission. The second comment was regarding the size of the sediment basin. So what we've done essentially is we've reduced that basin down a little bit to get it out of the area of work. So we've shown a larger connecting basin located in this area right here. Doing that, it's actually a nice suggestion that was made to us. It allowed us to enlarge the volume by about 44%, so we got a lot more storage capacity. The other nice thing about it was that because of the way the topography works, the basins are sort of essentially able to step down a little bit, not by feet, but by inches a little bit, so things kind of step down and as they work their way towards closer to the wetland areas and the buffer zones. The third comment that was made to us was regarding the original plan had a riprap spillway, and the comment was made that we prefer to see essentially a concrete outlet control structure. So what we have is a concrete head wall here with a notch cut out of it to help control the flow of the runoff. And lastly, there was a comment made, I believe it was by the commission, that asked about refueling of the equipment on site. So we've shown the area here highlighted in yellow. That'll be the refueling area. That's going to be a concrete pad, essentially, 5 by 8 feet. The equipment essentially they use is a pretty good sized vehicle. I believe it's something like 8 feet by 7 feet. It's a huge vehicle that does some of the chipping of the logs and whatnot. But that equipment will straddle that concrete pad so that you're essentially over the pad where the fueling of the equipment is. That pad, there's a detail shown on our detail sheet for that as well, but essentially it's a concrete pad with a 6-inch curb on it, so there's a lip around the entire thing which provides containment. And then there'll be positive linear barriers, which is something you'll see at gas stations, the grooves in the concrete around it, which will provide storage for small spills essentially. I should also note that the site will have a spill kit on site as well, which I think they already have on there as well. So those are essentially the 4 comments that were made by the Conservation Commission and the agent. And I believe we've addressed all those concerns and comments, and I'd like to answer any questions you might have at this point.
John, anything?
No additional comments?
Anybody in the audience? Comments, questions? All right, you've answered all our questions. Anybody else?
No.
All right, if not, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close.
Second.
Moved and said, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved, and I will entertain a motion to issue an order of conditions within the 21 days.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thank
Thank
very
you.
much.
Next item we have is continued public hearing on order number 5 Manley Street.
The applicants asked for a continuance, and that was based on my suggestion since we received the 53G's comments on Monday, and the engineer may have been able to address some of them, but I think we need to be able to
Yep.
have a little bit of a gap between his comments and for me to review them and then make a recommendation to the commission.
I'll entertain a motion to continue till the 5th.
I'll make,
Go ahead.
I'll make the motion.
Moved, second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved, continue to the 5th. We have a abbreviated notice of delineation for Belmont Street, and a motion to continue has been requested for that as well. I'll entertain a motion to continue to the 5th.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Lamp Post Estates.
Todd?
Sorry, you were gonna move that quick.
We all want to go home and have dinner.
Yep, I know the feeling.
So- I can finally see. Okay, Lamp Post Estates.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Todd Pilling from Pilling Engineering. It's been a little while since I've been in front of this board. This is the small little subdivision at the intersection of South Elm and Lincoln Street.
Can you see it? Can you see it okay, Steve? Not really.
Not really, that's okay.
There we go.
There we go.
I think you've seen it before anyway.
Yeah.
So, we left, I don't remember last time we were in front of this board, but it had to go out for a review. It was suggested to go out to Allen and Major for review. And so we've had continuances while we got their review, and then we made their changes, and apparently in that interim was also a review by the planning board consultant, but nobody told us about it. So after we did Allen Majors, then we had to go back and do theirs, and so I believe this set here encompasses everything that everybody's asked for. The last round was like, hey, it's 70.5 on sheet 4, but it says 70.1 on sheet 6. It was that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
because we had changed so many little things that we had forgotten a few, so. But I believe everything has been addressed at this point in time, but like I say, it's been a while, so I'll answer questions or give a summary if you'd like, but.
John?
We did receive the 53Gs, the commission's consultants reviewed, and it appears that other than a typographical error, it seems as if the plans were okay with the engineer. Since we just got it yesterday, I haven't had a chance to go through and determine some additional items such as conservation easements and those kind of things. And so I will need some time to take a look at the plan. I'm not going to get into the engineering part of it, but more what the Conservation Commission would like to see. And it won't require probably any changes on the plan. I'm not certain, but I don't believe it will. And so in order for me to be able to do that, I need a little bit more time. So I'm going to ask that the applicant continue it to the 5th.
Okay. It'll give us all a chance to take a look. at
It's
the
been a
plan.
little while, so I
Right,
don't understand, so.
And thank you for coming in. I appreciate the update. You'll have time to do that between now and the?
Yep.
Okay.
And I think you're gonna need the CR plan from us too, right, for the 50-foot buffer,
Right.
the pipes and all that, so, yeah. Yeah, we haven't prepared it yet until we had something that we could move forward with.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to continue to the 5th.
Did Steve want to?
Any questions for this one? Okay.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks for letting me.
So moved. And the next one we have is the Luke Estates.
Anybody here that wants to see this one?
I want to see that one.
All right.
Okay. Todd Hilling from Hilling Engineering. This one here, I think the last time we were in front of this board, we had underground drainage basins out here, and it was, we were directed to go to open basins. So we had some discussions back and forth with the Planning Board and Conservation Commission. Given the shallow water tables out here and the wetlands all the way around the perimeter of the site, we opted to go with rain gardens instead of traditional drainage basins, which need to be deeper. It also allowed us to take, we have 6 catch basins for 600-foot road. 4 of them are going to their own small bioretention rain gardens, which are like 10 by 10 or 10 by 20. They're very small. So they're gonna look like landscape areas in people's front yards. But before we did this, it's new to the planning board, so we had to go present it to them. They didn't think the DPW would like it, but because this is under the new stormwater bylaw, it's the homeowner association's maintenance. And so the planning board was willing to try it. I guess there was another rain garden somewhere in town that didn't quite live up to expectations. So the fact that the homeowner association is ultimately responsible for this, and it's such small areas going into each one, they were willing to consider it. So we revised the entire plan to make it a whole bunch of rain gardens, and we submitted that, and I believe Alan and Major ended up reviewing it, but somehow the review consultant for the planning board never got the plan set. So I mailed it myself, so I know I can't blame anybody else, but that was me. But so we revised the plans for everything that Alan and Major requested, and that's what you see here. This set of plans has again gone to both consultants for them to review, and I don't believe you've received any reviews back from either one of them from this revised set. So I would anticipate we get continued while we sort that out. But I believe this is the first crack the commission is having at this revised layout, and so obviously I'd like to hear some input.
John?
You're referring to the homeowners, they're going to maintain the road as well?
It's the stormwater bylaw, so I believe they're responsible for cleaning the catch basins and drainage structures. I don't believe they're gonna be responsible for the road, but it's under the stormwater bylaw, not under the zoning bylaw.
Okay.
But I could be wrong, this is the first one I've done under the bylaw, so I'm still kind of figuring out some of it.
Okay.
We haven't prepared homeowner docs or anything like that yet.
I can check with the planning board on that.
I'm a proponent of this rain garden idea. I think if done right, they work, so I'm glad you went that route.
Yeah, I mean, I would rather put one big one in the middle of the cul-de-sac, and, you know, because that can get you the vegetative filter strips and stuff, but West Bridgewater doesn't allow them in the middle of the cul-de-sac, so that's why I went with a bunch of small ones. We have catch basins into sediment forebays into the bioretention, so that should get supposed to get the 44% TSS, and obviously limiting road salts and sand on the street will extend their life greatly too. But I'm thinking with them in everybody's front yard, and it's the same size of the landscape area, they might be more inclined to maintain it and make sure that the trees stay healthy and stuff like that, so it'll be interesting.
John?
Again, like on the previous one, now that the engineering appears to be fairly finalized, and I do think that the review engineer had a couple of comments that he made recently. You didn't get a copy of it? Okay. I'll make sure that that gets forwarded to you. But again, I think it's pretty well thrashed out as far as the drainage. Planning board, they are still not finalized?
Again, we haven't heard back from the review consultant,
Okay.
but,
So obviously, we should continue, but in the interim, while we're continuing this, I think just like with lampposts, I should be looking at the 50-foot buffer protection, the vegetative management, control of it, that kind of thing. Also, are those rain garden bioretention basins in easements?
yes, they are.
Okay, so that's pretty good, because in the past, when we've recommended them, and they're not in an easement, and it's not part of the restriction, then all of a sudden they disappear.
Yeah.
So,
Well, in this way with the easement, the association can go in and clean them up. It's not responsible for each owner to clean up
Right.
their own. The association can go in and do them
Right.
all.
so I would recommend a continuance.
Sure.
Any questions?
Steve?
Yeah, actually. So, Todd, correct? Todd, you mentioned the planning board. When's the last time you were in front of the planning board?
It's been a couple months.
Okay, so they really haven't had a chance to.
No,
talk-
again, same thing as
talk
this
to
board
you
tomorrow night. We're going in front of them to do the same thing we're doing
about
tonight.
this. Okay, I was just kind of getting a feeling like you were laying it out here, like they're familiar and comfortable with this.
No.
Which-
Well, we had a bunch of preliminary discussions with them to discuss rain gardens and breaking it up into these smaller things, because this is something West Bridgewater hasn't done before. And there was several meetings where we kicked it around, and ultimately ended up agreeing on it based on all these other considerations. So, but no, tomorrow night will be their first crack at it.
Because this is not my first time. It looks like you laid out the actual lots differently in here.
The lot shape had to change because a couple of them didn't meet the building square touching twice on the street and stuff like that, so we had to adjust some of the lot lines.
Okay, because, looking at it from here, I still have and I don't even know, this might not even be the commission that would be concerned about it, is, the elevations again, and right to the back of my property, there's basically a house almost right in my backyard, and that's gonna be elevated, and that water is just gonna be pushed right into my backyard. That's just not acceptable. I think they're trying to put too many homes into this space. And now they're pushing homes down. Paul Coit will be with me, I'm sure, next time, then now that he knows that there's a home down the bottom, just gonna be changing those elevations closer to that. And, because on his property, he's got a river, or a red brook, I think it is, that runs through there, and that's wet enough as it is today. So this layout's gonna push more elevations off in his direction, which is, I believe, the direction in which the water flows, because it heads there. He's got a couple of ponds on his property, and then there's West Meadow beyond there.
So I think if, I understand Steve's concern, it's the raised elevations of the houses and the septic systems and the roadways, and I believe that from this distance in my earlier looking at the plans, there's a swale to take that runoff and direct it, but Todd can answer that.
Yeah, so when we originally proposed this road, we were higher with it, and the concerns of the abutters were raised, and that, part of the problems we had here is shallow water table and stuff. So we ended up lowering the road down. We slid the low point from here back to here, so that we were able to lower the road. This water is now being directed that way, where before it was coming this way. We also have this, it's a culvert. There is a small swale that goes into a culvert, so any water that's coming this way, which it does now, will hit that culvert and go through. The review consultant asked that we analyze the culvert to make sure the capacity was enough to handle the amount of water coming through, because it's only a 12-inch pipe. And so we submitted those documents, and that was part of what was reviewed by both review consultants. But yes, the house and the road is up in the air. If we try and put the road down at ground level, then we have no place to run our water to, because we need separations to water table to make the drainage work. So We slid the road a little further away from the property owners too, so there isn't a retaining wall right at the property, so again, it's anticipated that the water is going to find its way into the pipe and under the roadway. And that pipe will be maintained by the homeowner association, so if it gets clogged up, it can be cleaned out by the association.
What's the elevation of that road now that you've moved it over closer to my neighbor now? Is there a drop off from that road down into the yard now?
The road is at about 112 right here, and it's 111 on the side and 112 on your side. You go down to Station 1, it's about 111.5, and it's 110 on his side, and about 111 on your side.
So that's a yes.
So yeah, it's like
You
18,
just said,
12 to 18 inches
instead of
higher.
the water coming down the road, which is into the property that you're developing, it's gonna be heading more into the neighbor's yard now.
Well, there's a curve on the road, so the water in the road is going to stay in the road. It's not gonna leave the road, it's only for that 5-foot grass strip where that water would be quote-unquote heading toward the neighbor. But the water, that part of the road is already kind of going across the neighbor's yard anyway, because the water is going diagonally across his property, so we're not changing the amount of water going across his property.
Might
That
even,
direction
might
reduces
even lessen it.
Yeah. We didn't analyze specifically his property because it's much smaller area going there now, and it's grass, it's not pavement that we're putting in.
So there's no retention wall on my side anymore?
There is, it starts here and goes back to there, which is, about 70 feet long.
And how high?
And the top of that wall is about 112, and the bottom is about 111.
So now, if you don't mind, I'm just kind of, right now, as you say, that's okay, the water naturally flows this way. So now there's gonna be a retention wall, so this water isn't gonna flow as quickly as it will, so it's gonna start building up in here. This property here is elevated, so that's gonna send water in my direction. It naturally flows this way until you build the home and elevate it over here. That's gonna be full of water. That's not acceptable.
Well, that's why we put the 12-inch pipe at the bottom of the bathtub to let all that water out so that it won't build up. There will not be a pond on his property.
Did you
You're
see?
You're gonna put that in writing and guarantee and insure me against that happening? Because that, to me, is a recipe for disaster. You're squeezing too many homes into that property. That's not acceptable.
But even if I get rid of half the homes in there, I'd still have the same problem that the road still has to be elevated and I still need to build it.
This home wouldn't be right in my backyard where your elevations are coming right down to my property. You'd move it away. And I'm sure it'd be the same for Peter and Pat over here. You'd move it away. Get it out so you're not pushing water towards our property.
Well, the review consultant, and I think John even asked it the last time, there's a swale that starts at the back of the house and goes all the way up to that. It's approximately 10 feet wide, so any water that's going that way is gonna get caught by the swale and head to the pipe. The front yard is all being directed toward the street, the driveway's all going to the street, this side's all going that way. So it's only like the front half of the front yard that's going that way, and there is a swale.
What's the elevation difference?
Well, the front yard
Roughly.
goes from like 115 down to 110, so the water table's at 2 feet on the site, so all the houses are up in the air. So yes, it is a substantial mound that we are building, but Title V regulations demand that we can't be up against the property line. In fact, we went even further to get that swale in there, so that we are not directing water onto an abutter.
Which you can't do anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
So the key will be in our conditions that the homeowners will be responsible for keeping that
The swale.
culvert and the swale clear so that it doesn't build up water onto Steve's property.
Of
I
course.
can expand the easement and go up the swale too. I didn't go up the swale with the easement, so I can expand that.
I'm confident that that's gonna get wet, so I just need to know what my rights are, because I'm gonna fight it. It's not acceptable.
And the engineer looked at it already in his.
Yes.
Okay.
Is his report in? No,
Yes,
it is.
yep.
You haven't looked at it, though.
I've
Roughly.
really just skimmed it.
So you know what the 53G does, right?
I don't.
The commission has a consultant that they hired to review all this to make sure that it's right. And so the last review came in with only a few minor comments, and I don't believe one of them was regarding that swale, so I think
So you got
there's,
two independent engineer plus,
Well, and the planning board has a review consultant too, right, so that's, yeah,
Three.
3 engineers,
Yeah.
plus John, and the board members.
so if there is an issue, that homeowners association's got to keep it clean so that the water will drain out of that low spot. And I would say a call to the town's going to call the homeowners association, who is responsible for it, and have them clean it.
but assuming the swale is not overgrown and so forth, it's gonna work.
Yep. But but it has to be maintained.
Anything else?
Mm-mm.
Now, is the 5th gonna work, or do we need to go further than that? With the, I mean, I know the planning board hasn't gotten their report back to you yet, is that correct, or is
Right,
it?
I haven't seen it, but he was on vacation until the end of July, so I would expect to have it any day now, so. They probably already have it, and they haven't given it to me yet, so.
So is the 5th too soon?
I mean, it's one where we have
Depends
Luke,
what's in the review letter.
Rather go up.
I mean, I would rather make a
Yeah.
date that we can all live to than have to continue it on the 5th,
Yeah.
knowing that more than likely, with Luke Estate still going on and Lamppost and Fox, we're gonna have
Well,
to.
I think Lamppost
Lamppost is-
at the end.
Right, it's toward the end.
This one here, obviously, depends what's in the letters from the review consultant and whether or not we have to
So the
do more.
19th?
I'm just thinking the 19th might be,
Okay, we can work out some of those other docs. You're gonna need homeowner association docs and stuff like that to review too, right? Under the stormwater
Well,
bylaw.
we could,
And that might help.
yeah,
with
that's
some
true.
Assurance to the
He's
abutters.
gonna need to get the wording for the agreements and so forth, so minimum the 19th.
so
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion to continue the 19th.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, there we have a date. Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Great, thank you.
That'd be great, thank you, Todd.
Two different ones here. All right.
I think we're into the other and administrative discussion end of this meeting. You are here for
54.
54 Beacon?
Yep, my name is Manny Bethany. I've been in the town for 38 years, and I want to put a garage on my house, and my engineer is Rick Alfonso from Tetra Tech. And sorry, we don't have a plan for everybody.
That's okay.
I
We
got
can-
some disease today.
So you can put it down there, yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you have a seat? It's right over there. They don't mind that.
Yeah,
No.
So again, my name is Rick Alfonso. I'm a vice president at Tetra Tech. And although this is a relatively small project, I usually work on much bigger projects. Last project I did in town was the Lowe's and Chili's some time ago. Haven't been back to West Bridgewater since, but it's a pretty straightforward project. We met with John, or Lisa Carosa said to say hello, she's working on this with me.
Oh.
And since we met, we went out and we delineated the line. Ed Hutchinson delineated the line. It was further away from the house than my engineering eyes had thought. So the wetland line is in green. Manny's house is right here, this light brown shade. So we basically, we have the edge of the BVW. Here is your 50-foot no disturb, the red line, and then the 100-foot buffer under the Wetland Protection Act. This is the garage that's proposed with a small connection. Mr. Bethany has a door on the side of his
split-level home that goes into the lower level, and he wants to be able to get from the garage into the house through this small connector piece. We would do a little bit of grading on this side of the house so he has access around to the backyard, and we would protect all of the resources with compost filter stock. So we were just looking for your guidance. I don't think, I think we're out of the 50, I know we're out of the 50-foot no disturb under your wetland bylaw. We are in the buffer zone. So I think we do need to do some filing.
Yes.
And so we were hoping to just do an RDA, and unless this commission felt otherwise that we needed to do a notice, but I thought an RDA would work here.
You said this is 54?
Yes, sir.
54 Beacon Street, correct.
Just because I saw that come up on our agenda, and I went to GIS mapping for the state with Oliver, and was curious what they had for wetland line.
Is that a
Have you-
wall? It's a black line?
Oh, that's the compost filter stock.
Erosion control?
Okay.
There's no wall. The front of the garage has to meet, obviously, the driveway.
Yeah.
So we have to put a couple of feet of fill in here,
Yeah.
to support the garage.
So
But
there's no encroachment on this, within the 50 at all?
no, we're staying completely out of the 50.
Could you check that line, John?
Yes, they came in, well, Manny actually came in and asked about, could he put this garage on? So I called up the Oliver wetland mapping that the Mass GIS has, and it showed the wetland line a lot closer to the property. And when Rick came in on a second discussion that we had in the office, he thought it was fairly close as well, and we thought that it was going to encroach in the 50-foot buffer.
Yeah.
And so, rather than have them do a lot of engineering, I suggested that they come in and talk to the commission. Apparently, in the interim, as Rick indicates, they've had the wetland flagged by whom?
Ed Hutchinson, he's our senior-most biologist, wetland scientist, very senior guy.
Which would show a difference from what the Mass GIS shows, so that would have to be looked at, of course. But at this point, it looks as if the project could be issued if the commission were to entertain a notice of intent, and I think you need a notice, not a request.
Because, yeah.
And so, one of the reasons for the notice is that I think that the commission would be interested in marking that 50-foot, or the red line that you see on the plan, Manny, with PVC markers indicating that that's a protected buffer, even though maybe your lawn might go over that far now, they would want to see that line. So you might want to have that on the plan. And so I think you're looking pretty good, but it's up to the commission on really whether you need to do a notice or a request, and what kind of conditions they would put on it. But that would have to be done through a public hearing.
And the markers are every 30 feet or so?
Yep.
What, you mean wetland flags?
No,
PVC
pipes with a sign.
So we do that as part of the work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a detail for
Yep.
exactly what you want to?
Well, yeah, I have no questions. I mean,
We have the emblems upstairs, you don't have to make the sign.
So it appears, that again, the information's now a little bit more
Yeah,
accurate,
yeah.
and I think they should
this is a
proceed.
no determination.
And I can
No.
give them some guidance on what to show on the plan.
Right.
So in order to be on the meeting for the 5th of September, you would need to have it turned in by
Monday.
Monday.
Yeah, we would probably shoot for what's
Okay.
19.
For the 19th.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay.
And in the meantime, I can call and talk to you about it.
I
I'll give you a
don't
call
see any
tomorrow.
problem.
Yeah.
I'm not in tomorrow, but Thursday I will be.
Okay, and so what's the filing date to be on for the, what day was 19th?
19th, you would have to be,
It's my birthday, you'll have to have balloons and.
okay.
Oh, that's
Cake.
really pushing it.
Would be the 5th.
Yeah.
You'd have to turn it in on Tuesday the 5th, the day after Labor Day. Does that leave you enough time?
Yeah, we'll have to make it work. I don't see why not. It should be, I'm away next week, but
Then if that's too soon, October 3rd you'd have to have it in on the 18th.
yeah, I think we have to go for they're hoping to be, many would like to get the garage done for the winter.
Sure.
So we want to be hopefully working out there in October. So I think it would be best if we shot for the 19th. And so for the 19th, we need to file on the 5th.
On the 5th.
5th. And you'll send me, I'll chat with you on Thursday
Yep.
to see what we need to put on the plan.
So, you've got the kind of
Perfect.
ideas from the commission,
We appreciate your
informal
time.
ideas.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
See you later.
So is that garage going to be winterized?
It's gonna be what?
Winterized?
I don't know, I haven't made up my mind yet.
Oh, you better
I
get
just
thinking.
don't wanna shovel the truck off anymore. I have to get up on a ladder. It's
Oh,
it's
yeah.
about 6.5 feet tall.
Not anymore.
Thanks, folks. Have a nice
All
day.
Have a good one.
Good night.
All right, we have 125 Bedford Street, request for certificate of compliance.
This was the former filing for Mahoney Place. And as we all know, a new applicant came in with a new plan and a new DEP file number. So this one has to be issued a certificate that the project was never built according to that DEP file number. And they need it in order to clear the title on the property. So I'm recommending you issue a certificate of compliance that the project was never constructed.
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Now, is it because somebody else bought the property?
Yep.
Okay, so why wouldn't they kind of like just, or they couldn't go with just,
Expired.
yeah, okay, it expired, so they couldn't go with the way it was supposed to be built?
Right. They put in a different shaped house.
Oh, okay, so they did
And,
something altogether different then.
And I think one was a garage, went
Fast.
straight in, the other one came in the end.
So moved.
Some
Here it
grading
is.
changes.
Okay.
And then the other is item 11, designating the conservation agent.
Yes, as my report indicates, the Board of Selectmen had issued, I believe it was in 2013, a memo appointing me, which I never saw. And so at the last meeting, you appointed me, and so I guess what has to be done is that the motion should be to either ratify or not agree with the selectmen. It's up to you.
It was ratified at the last meeting.
Okay, then why is it on our agenda tonight?
Because you were going to define it and look it up.
Did you appeal it? Didn't want to do that.
All right. So I guess.
Then we're all set.
Okay, we're all set.
So we
Yep.
can just scrap that whole thing?
Yeah.
Because it was all done?
John gave us handouts for,
Electronic copy filing policy, and also a policy for
submitting,
getting deadlines in for continuations of meetings. Rather than having you have to read it this evening, I would appreciate it if you looked at it. If you think it makes sense, then we can go with it. If you think it needs to be tweaked a little bit so that it's more understanding. I tried a number of times to go through it based on trying to pretend I didn't know anything about this whole process, so that it tried to be as clear as it could be to an outsider, but you guys take a look at it, and we'll put it on the agenda for next meeting. And then we have to decide on how we're going to present these electronic files to you, so that we don't have that big pile in front of the chairman or any of the other members, or rustling with plans over the microphone, so that it distorts the sound of what's happening in the meeting.
And so that we don't trip upstairs.
Yes.
So we have a couple of ways we could do it. We could use the overhead projector and have it on the screen, except for it makes it a little
We have to
tougher
move.
for
Right.
you two, because
Right.
you're kind of in the line of sight. We could have the iPad or a tablet type device, and I could upload everything on it for the meetings. Then all you have to do is just flip through each plan.
How many would we need? One for every 2 people or so?
I would say it would be best to have one for each so basically 5.
I don't even know what they cost, but I suppose we're not talking megabucks.
I checked with Ed Sorrow and asked him if there were any outdated and old ones from the school system. And he says there are none, and the reason why is that most of them get turned in
Yeah.
when they need to upgrade them, and they always keep a few just as spares for the students that might need one in an emergency. So they don't have any extras, and he seemed to indicate that around $150 for each one.
That's not too bad.
I guess if all the kids get them.
So,
Well, we can take a red out of our own,
Huh?
we can take a red out of our own fund.
Yep.
so
Yeah.
We don't
And-
have to ask.
Well,
for
I mean, you know, we're
Right, we
giving
just
it
have
to
the budget,
everyone.
right,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
and I do have a line item in the budget for instruments, engineering instruments. This could be considered that, and that might cover it,
Well,
and still leave some money for some engineering.
even like Mo said, even if we don't get all of them at once, maybe we can at least do one for 2 people at least, just to begin.
Yeah, we could do that.
Worst case, you know.
But $750 is kind of what we're, sounds great.
And
But I think you may want to look at, well, unless you're going to carry down the set of plans just for you to have at a meeting, so we have those.
well, we'll still get the 2 hard
Right,
copies
sets.
of everything. And then, are you here for the meeting?
That's my wife. She's just
Oh,
waiting for
okay.
me.
She's checking up on him.
Oh, wait a minute.
That's my wife.
It's all right.
Oh, I didn't know, I'm sorry.
Am I allowed to be here?
Oh, yeah.
Certainly.
No, we just didn't want to leave you out of the discussion.
No, I'm
And-
gonna play a game or something.
And now I know who you are, so sorry.
No, I just didn't know whether we should look at 6, put it in as a capital expenditure on the budget so that you had one and the 5 members, Kitty's got the laptop, we'd be,
Well, see, I could bring my laptop down too, so.
right. I mean, I'm just,
Yeah.
That
But
way
I-
you can review it in the car on the way.
there you
I
go.
bring my own, this is my own, so I just bring this one.
I just think it would be easier if we did, and other, just so we didn't have to have as much paperwork and reduce it all.
I don't even think we would even need to bring down, like.
Right, a
I
set.
have this copy
That'd be
here.
great.
Oh, it would be so much
Well,
better than lugging all this stuff.
The only ones that are gonna have to have it are the engineers.
Right, and they're gonna bring their set to
And
present
they have to,
anyways.
yeah, they gotta.
The audience gets to,
Yeah.
And so we could have the engineer with the
Yeah.
easel
Going
pointed
that way,
right
yeah.
that way,
exactly.
and the rest of us are following along. However, if they wanted to point something out, it
Tell
might.
us what page, that's all.
Yeah,
they
they
got.
just have to refer to the page so we can be on that page.
Yeah,
and
that's
then-
true. So, I'll look into it. There might be a supplier who could get it to us a little less than 150. So I'll look around to see. I checked with WB Mason, and we do get a discount from the municipal discount from WB, but we'll check. We'll check all the different sources, and there might be somebody that does have refurbished ones that we don't need a brand new one. And
Can you get connection to Wi-Fi on those?
And if they do have them, we would be able to,
Because we can get the Google map up if we want to look at
we can
something.
check the Google Maps. There's a lot of opportunity
Yeah.
there if we go that route. And then the continuation policy is basically what we were talking about. If you don't get it in a week before we publish the agenda, then it automatically goes on the next agenda, and it goes up on the town calendar agenda that says it's going to be continued. So if somebody like Steve, who had to keep coming to check on
Yeah.
it, would be able to see it. And if somebody doesn't have access to a computer, which there are people that don't, I don't know how to help them out, but they could call.
Yeah.
And
If
we
they
would
could
know.
call in,
ahead
or
of
it'd be posted on the agenda
I think Word
so that
can't they go to the library to add to?
to look it up.
To look
Yeah.
it up?
Yeah.
If
that's
worse
true.
came to worse,
Yeah,
there's always must be a way to be able to do it.
or at least if we know about it a week ahead of time, that they called up, Kitty would be able to say,
True.
it's on the agenda, but they will be continuing it, you don't have to come.
It'd be nice to see these on there.
Yep.
I have time to read them, I know you don't.
Anything else, Kitty? I think we have some signatures.
Yes, we do. Four of those.
So was Steve still concerned about runoff, or
He seems to be.
still concerned?
And the whole key to that system working is maintenance. And if Steve seems to see that water is starting to back up, he's got to be able to call a contact
Someone.
person. And we're gonna have that included in the conditions.
Okay.
It may not be a name specific, but, is it the president of the homeowners? And we'll have to have a way of them being able to keep us updated with the numbers, the contact numbers, because if it's on a Sunday and it's pouring like crazy,
Yeah.
and they have to get a hold of somebody, they're not gonna be able to wait until Monday or Tuesday when people finally start being able to be contacted.
What would you do? I mean, you're getting a huge rainstorm and what do you do?
Well, being in an easement, the DPW could step in and take care of it because it's emergency.
What would they do, for instance?
Come down and
Just clean
rake
up
it
the-
out, and if the
So,
inlet's
as long
being,
as it's there and it's
It's designed and kept clean.
He has no problem.
Right, if there shouldn't
Yeah,
be.
I got you.
These are 53G bills.
It sounds
for the
like he
consultants.
doesn't believe it, but you got 3 engineers looking at it, right? And you.
and the fix is pretty easy, because usually what happens is sorry about that, the inlet usually gets leaves or some debris in it, and it's very easy, take a rake, pull it away, the water rushes out,
Okay.
and it's over within a matter of minutes.
This
Right.
is for what, Luca Estates? Is that what you're talking about?
And if the engineers have
At least
all
you're
looked
not
at
in
it, and that
church.
12-inch pipe is enough to take the water
Yeah,
that's
you have
ponding
to
out,
accept
then
that,
that should be big enough to take
Yeah,
care of the,
yeah.
the 12-inch pipe is a pretty good pipe to
Yeah.
Well,
move that water.
sometimes so-called old timers come in and they don't buy any of that stuff. He's not an old timer, but
I just kind of wish they kind of up the 100-year flood
Yeah, numbers to
to like 150 or whatever. It's-
the
'cause-
200-year
'cause
numbers
Nowadays, nowadays, you're getting 2-3 inches of rain, so
on a regular basis.
certain
That's a normal
spots,
storm,
It's a
not a,
strange thing, isn't
yeah.
it?
I mean, if they were to kind of up that, they'd have to make up either.
It's on the second page, Mo, the money. Oh, you were looking for how much it is?
no, well, yeah, there was a little difference there, but
There's,
It's on the second page in a
that's
box.
the 53G.
Yeah, all the green slips are.
there's no need for me to do what I was gonna be doing, so it's all off, just to
Oh,
let you know.
okay. Delayed or off? Oh, okay,
Delayed,
delayed.
yes.
Okay. Yes. All set?
Yeah.
A motion?
Motion?
Second.
Moving second, all's in favor?
Aye.
We're closed.
I don't know what
What's
time
this
it
here,
is.
guys?
10 minutes?
Is this yours
5
or
minutes?
yours?
7:50.
Steve?
Oh, okay.
7:55, 7:50 something.